Syria says its army positions in the Golan Heights have once again come under fire from Israel. It's the second strike in the area in 2 days. And to get more on the story, we can now cross live to our Middle East correspondent, Paula Sleer. Hi there, Paula. So what more do we know at this stage?
Well, at this stage, the Syrian military has issued a statement regarding Israeli strikes on the Golan Heights. It says that the Israeli Air Force attacked Syrian army positions twice since Saturday, and that it all happened while the army was in the midst of a battle with Jabhat al-Nusra. Now, the al-Nusra has stepped up its offensive in the Golan Heights, and these strikes have, of course, helped the al-Nusra front. As far as the Israeli army goes, they have confirmed that they targeted Syrian army positions in the Golan Heights because the IDF says some of the projectiles from the fighting between the sides landed on the Israeli side of the Golan Heights. The Israeli army also describes the projectiles as errant, so it says that it understands that they weren't targeting Israel, but insists that Israel's position is if any projectiles land on our territory, there will be a price to pay. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had this to say at the start of the weekly cabinet meeting.
Our policy is clear. We will not tolerate any spillover or trickle whatsoever, neither mortars nor rockets from any front. We will respond strongly to any attack on our territory or our citizens.
Now, talking to some people on the ground here, what is being expressed is the view that the Syrian army needs to pay the price for whatever happens in the Golan Heights. Even if the Syrian army is fighting terrorists, Israel still continues to hit their positions.
Thank you very much indeed. That's RT's Paula Sleer in Tel Aviv. Well, and for more on this, we can now cross live to political commentator John Bosnich. John, thank you very much indeed for joining us so late this evening. Well, as we heard there from what Paula was saying, Syria says it's fighting against Jabhat al-Nusra terrorists in the Golan Heights, and errant missiles hit Israel. Do you think the Israeli response is acceptable?
Well, it's never acceptable to violate international law by firing across an international border. Neither the action of the Syrian military, if it crossed the Israeli border, nor the Israeli response. Neither action would be considered a legal act under international law. But the point is that one act was apparently unintentional, and the other was intentional. And an intentional violation of international law is always more serious than an unintentional one.
Well, let's also look at some of the consequences of this. From what we gather so far, and this is only reported so far, the Syrian missiles didn't kill or injure anyone. And yet, from what we gather, I say reported, the Israeli response is claimed to have killed 2 Syrian soldiers. Do you think, by definition, then, Israel is being heavy-handed?
Yes, well, obviously, first of all, the Israeli act is intentional. And second of all, the damage, the human damage, first of all, the deaths, and the material damage is not proportional. So we have a situation in which Israel has violated the law once in terms of intent, and in a second sense in a disproportionate manner, which is also considered a legal violation.
Well, let's also look at the wider implications here. Israel's largely stayed on the sidelines when it comes to the Syrian civil war. Do you think these retaliatory strikes indicate that it's about to become more involved or even fully embroiled?
Well, you know, what we have taking place here is we see the United States getting sucked into the battle with the shoot down of the fighter airplane, and we see Israel getting sucked into the battle. And obviously this is a very common tactic for terrorist groups like al-Nusra. If you can suck in a major power to serve your purposes, more power to you. So the terrorists here, if they're intelligent, would locate their forces as close as humanly possible, even 1 centimeter away from the Israeli border, to draw fire from the Syrian forces. The Syrian forces, if they hit the terrorists, will certainly have some blow over into the Israeli side, thereby drawing Israel into the war. That is the ideal scenario for any terrorist group. And if Israel falls for that, there are only 2 possible explanations. A, Israel is somehow connected to al-Nusra, or al-Nusra is running a political policy which is much, much more intelligent than the Israeli one.
Well, let's also look at the situation in terms of diplomacy. Well, frankly, there isn't any other. No diplomatic relations between the two countries. Does that suggest, therefore, that only a military response can settle any argument between them?
Well, you know, there's always an opportunity to avoid military response. And the question is there goodwill? And there does not seem to be any goodwill on the part of Israel with respect to the government of Syria. And it is the legal government of Syria. And, you know, there is no excuse for this kind of activity. There is no justification of it in the World Court or in international law. And it cannot lead to anything good. It's a mistake, and it's a grievous mistake on the part of Israel. It will only embolden the terrorists to try to draw more fire near the Israeli border. This is the only certain result. All the rest is up in the air.
Indeed, and we'll have to leave it there. John Bosnich, political commentator, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. Thank you.